Good evening, Spikes. I come before you with some pretty unfortunate news, depending on what camp you find yourself in. There was a large banned and restricted update posted recently by James White, and it had some pretty devastating repercussions.
It was very substantial.
Yeah, like we'll get into it a little bit more, but just like as a, to put my own flavor on it, I do think that this was maybe a little bit much. I agree with most of the changes individually, but I think altogether it was just a lot.
It was a lot to happen right away. And yeah, I agree. Yeah. Like individually, I think each decision is fair and well thought out and fine. But as a block of here's what's happening, I think it's a bit much.
Yeah. So before we go into too much about how we feel about it, let's just describe what actually happened. So it was announced that Briar, her ability is being changed, and it was due to sort of a miscalculation on Legend Story Studios' part in terms of how her effect was going to function within an actual game. The way that they were hoping was
the
that
exact quote here. Too.
Yeah. So if you'd like.
Yeah. So the exact quote is the design intent for the Briar hero card was to make non-attack action cards that defend for 2 more playable by enabling them to defend for 3. The way Briar ended up being printed, 2 defense cards frequently defended for 4s or 5, leading to metagames that has invalidated nearly every other deck based on attacking. Flesh and Blood is designed on the premise that standalone 4 defense cards are primarily defense reactions, such as Sink Below and Fate Foreseen. The real cost of playing these cards is that they offer no utility. They only do one thing other than pitch. They defend for 4.
Yes. So with that, a lot of the sort of tension that came up when you were facing against Briar, or when you were playing Briar and you were able to sort of keep the tempo on your opponent, was that you go wide with these free attacks that have go again, and you have these cards that have go again that also ping for arcane damage. Each of those is creating an embodiment, even if it only does 1 damage. You can pretty easily rack up 2, 3.
2, 3. 4. You're not getting full blocked every turn.
Yeah.
If you attack 4 times, something's getting through. You're getting some amount of embodiments every turn.
Which is also, even as that is, relatively telling as well, because even if your opponent decided to try to negate your embodiments by full blocking, then you pass over to them and they have no cards in hand.
Yeah.
So there's no way for them to swing back. They have to take a turn off and you can just do it all over again. Yeah. So being able to have that, go wide turn, ping in a couple times, even if you only get 2 embodiments, that means that a single non-attack action, like a Weave Lightning or something, blocks for 4. I'm going to cast Pounding Gale.
For 5?
For 5. It does not have go.
Okay.
But it is for 5.
I'll block 5.
Wow. Embodiments of Earth are really good. Which makes it not only a Weave Lightning if you decide to not block with it, it is also a Fate Foreseen. It just... And that's insane. Like that's just so much utility. And as mentioned in the quote, it kind of invalidates a lot of strategies.
It invalidates almost every other aggressive strategy.
Yeah.
When you the whole point of being aggressive is you're not supposed to be able to block as well as you attack. And that's the idea. But when Briar can attack as well as she can block, it becomes how do you compete with that as another aggressive deck? Say Dash or something. How do you out aggro a deck that can just full block your best turn because of 2 embodiments? And then you're like, okay, you've blown a whole bunch of cards and you've banished a bunch of stuff. Okay, well, I'll just
it's just sort of, it does feel very punishing for Briar to be so good at both things, both attacking and defending. But there were a couple other things that changed with Briar as part of this announcement in an attempt to rein in Briar's power level. But I think the changes do have some extra repercussions. They do ripple to other heroes, maybe intentionally, maybe non-intentionally. But the long and short of it is Duskblade, which was banned in CC the second, actually even before.
Before it came out.
Before it came out.
The 17th.
Yeah.
The set dropped on the 19th and it was banned 2 days before.
So it got banned in CC because they figured it was too powerful. It is now also banned in Blitz. So it joins the ranks of Drone of Brutality and Seeds of Agony. So those 3 cards are the only cards that are fully banned in the game thus far, other than Go Bananas, promo. I think that's the only other one because it's a promo card, and Rudy Gemkeeper.
But also Ball Lightning.
Yes. So there was.
So we got 2.
Sorry, there are 4 total cards now because Ball Lightning was banned
as well. In the same announcement.
alongside Plunder Run being banned in CC.
Yes.
It is still legal in Blitz. It is not valid in CC. Ball Lightning is valid in neither format, and Duskblade is valid in neither format as well. So starting from the top, I mean, Duskblade was just generically a very powerful card. I've been playing Chain relatively recently in our local meta, and I didn't bring it in super frequently, but against the Oldhim matchup and other like control-y slower matchups, it did feel really insurmountable. Like
it gives you a ton of like, for lack of a better word, inevitability when. So basically when you end up playing in these control matchups, like against Oldhim, their goal is to slow the aggro decks down. They're doing their best to be like, if you're going to play 4 cards, I'm going to block with 2 and then activate Crown of Seeds to negate some damage and pitch to Oldhim's ability. And so basically you've wasted your whole hand and I've only taken 1 damage. And those cards you've played are gone, whereas I've just pitched stuff. So they draw the game out. The thing with Duskblade, if you're playing especially Chain, not so good in like Cheerios Briar, because Cheerios Briar doesn't have a lot of room to shift gears. But for Chain, you can say, well, instead of playing, like I'm going to play this non-attack action and this attack action with the Shackle for Go Again, instead of jamming this Rift Bind or something from my hand, I'm going to attack with Duskblade instead. And it's going to get a counter. So all you're really doing is committing 2 cards and some resources on this Duskblade that's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually they just slowing the game down becomes detrimental to them because every turn you're not blowing through your resources as fast as they need you to be. And it gets harder and harder and harder to block more and more of this Duskblade. And eventually they just can't. They just like crumble under the weight of your massive counters. And you don't even really have to like change your strategy. You're just sacrificing an extra like, like Riftbind or Howl from Beyond or like this extra card you'd play to sneak in a few points of damage into just a constant like pushing forward of damage every turn. And there's like really nothing I can do about it.
That's one of the things that I think is like really emblematic of the core problem of Duskblade. I think that there's a really concise and really elegant change, and something that would actually make sense a lot more from just a flavor standpoint, because it's supposed to be the mirror of Dawnblade. They're supposed to be like one in the same, just 2 sides of the same coin sort of thing. Dawnblade only gets counters if it's hit twice in the turn. It cares about hitting, not attacking. I think that if Duskblade got the counter on hit rather than on attack, it would be a good card, but not nearly as broken, because the
like if you attack with it and you've played a non-attack and an attack action and it hits, it gets the counter. I think it becomes much fairer.
It becomes a lot more fair. It's still a really good card, especially because with Chain, you're usually ending a couple of attacks with with
whatever
weapon
you have.
So it's likely, even though it wouldn't get the counter until it hit and it's only attacking for 2 on the first time, I think that like you can maybe sneak in 1 or 2 and then still have a pretty decent effect. But your opponent, when it's at 3, they can still block it out with 1 card and sort of control it that way. There's more agency on the opponent's part to be able to control how big the Duskblade gets.
Yeah, and it's definitely, and you fall on that thing where Chain and Viscera and other Rune Blades, they don't pack a ton of attack actions.
Yes.
So a lot of the times your weapon attack is the attack at face value. So if you attack for 2, you can be like, okay, well, I'm going to block. And it's costing them resources. It's not like it's just a free prevented, like they've just blanked your weapon. It does cost them something, and it doesn't cost you as much. Like if we take Oldhim, for example, pitching to his ability to negate the 2 damage from the Duskblade at like, if it worked this way, is great, because basically what it's costing you is it's just parity, each costing you a card pitch.
Yeah.
Like it's not neither of you are ahead, neither of you behind.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So whereas, you can't actually do that as it is now. It attacks for 3.
It attacks for 3 right out the gate.
And then it's going to attack for 4. And it's not.
It just keeps getting worse. And it's just so consistent, specifically, again, in Chain. I think it was the problem card. So I'm not surprised to see it go. I do think that there was a little bit of a misstep in designing the card. I think that like even just that one little tweak, I do believe that it would be more balanced and probably not banned. It would still be really good. But I don't think it would be banned if it was on hit rather than on attack, the trigger. But anyway, in terms of that, that's only one of the bans that we're here to talk about.
Yes.
So next up, let's talk about Ball Lightning.
Yeah. So Ball Lightning is flat out banned in both CC and Blitz.
Yeah.
No like trial period. No, just
no. It is fully banned, not a legal card to play, similar to Seeds of Agony.
And like you can't really beat it. Ball Lightning is too good. Like there's no. I'm sorry. It's very hard to justify how like the card being fair. Like the red version attacks for 3 with go again for nothing, and then also has a damage buff on it.
It's for the rest of the
chain. Like, now, I mean, sure, it only applies to elemental or lightning attacks, but do you know what else is an elemental or lightning attack? Another Ball Lightning. Like that's the problem. Is
additional ball
lightnings stack. Who knew?
It's nuts.
So, it just got out of hand very quickly, like a good example. And so I think at the core of this, a lot of these band announcements and changes are due not entirely, but like a huge chunk to Briar. Like it's all of the things we're going to talk about were in Briar.
Yeah.
Chain to some extent was playing Plunder Runs and Duskblades, but the Ball Lightning, you have turns, it's very common and not difficult, where you play Sting of Sorcery and then you go yellow Ball Lightning, red Ball Lightning, red Ball Lightning. And like, or if you're playing CC, you could be like red, like 777s and just present so much arcane damage. Like not even like if the Ball Lightnings don't, it doesn't matter if they hit, like whatever.
It's damage on top. Like it's so gross.
But it's like it's 2, 3, 4, it's 9 arcane damage that is really hard to barrier. And then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you have to block these 3s. And if you don't, it's like
you just take more and more and more damage. I seem to remember, I was trying to find an instance of me saying this, but I'm pretty sure just around when Tales of Aria first dropped, I did call that Ball Lightning was too strong.
I believe it might have been when we were opening packs, like on the first release, we were doing a booster thing. I think we were commenting, or you specifically were commenting on how good Ball Lightning was, because I was mad because I hadn't opened any Ball Lightnings because they're really good and I needed Ball Lightnings.
Yeah, like just it was like the big downside, the big downside of the card, because it is just objectively like a really good common, but it does have the downside of having 0 block.
Correct.
So you aren't able to block with it, and that's supposed to be what makes it balanced. The thing about that is, though, that Briar was so aggressive, she didn't care about blocking.
No, you didn't.
You just take damage and then present more damage on your turn. So the fact that it doesn't block is completely irrelevant. It could block for 3 and it would be the same card. It would be just as strong. In
I could think of maybe 1 out of a dozen games I've played with Cheerios Redline Briar where I was like, I really wish I could block with this Ball Lightning. I was like, no,
this card does too much damage. So I'm not all that surprised that Ball Lightning bit the dust, but I think that again, I think that plus the Plunder Run plus the Briar errata was it feels like an overcorrection. I think that any one of these would potentially rein in Briar to some extent, especially even if you wanted to do like the errata plus one of the bans. Yeah, I think that's like fine. I think maybe Ball Lightning did legitimately deserve to be banned because it just.
I think the problem that Ball Lightning kind of falls into, it suffers from the fact that it is a lightning card and can be played in it can only be played in 2 decks.
Yes. Yep.
And it just so happens that one of those decks was like crazy oppressive. I think they were saying that in Classic Constructed, Briar constituted 63% of all the Living Legend points they'd have awarded in the last season, like National Champion season, which is nuts.
Which is nuts for such a new hero too. Like, because you think about it, like Chain got new goodies in Tales of Aria, like Guardian got new goodies in Tales of Aria, and they have a wider pool of cards to pull from, really, because they have like the specializations from previous sets and stuff like that. But with Briar, just the sheer fact that, you know, lightning cards are really good and the generic cards are really good, and then, you know, every so often they play a Runeblade card like a Sonata or something just for card draw. Like it was just Sting of Sorcery
as a Runeblade card.
Yeah,
randomly.
it like pitches for blue, but also combos with Ball Lightning. Like
I don't even think many lists play specifically elemental Runeblade cards.
I don't think
can't think of a single one. Yeah. It's all like lightning cards or generic 0 for 4 attacks with like conditional go again. And like other Runeblade cards. I think there's one instance where you can play Arcanic Shockwave, I think, is 3+.
Yes, it's 3+1 arcane
for 0.
Lightning Fuse, and that is an elemental Runeblade card.
Yes.
But it's still just like a 0 for 4.
Right.
You fuse it and it's a 0 for 4. So it's Briar, just the way that she was originally designed was not like cohesive with the flavor of Tales of Aria.
There was no incentive to like, it wasn't like Lexi or Oldhim where, you know, her ability is conditional on playing, like, you know, you have to play an earth hit with an earth attack to make an embodiment of earth, hit with a lightning attack to make an embodiment of lightning. That'd be a cool mechanic. It would kind of force you to choose between the two, but it was just play your second non-attack action, full stop, hit with an attack card, stop, like full stop. Like,
and but it wasn't even hit; it was deal.
Oh, deal damage, right.
Which is so much more generic.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. She was almost like from the word go. She was kind of designed to be just really vanilla, just widely applicable and strong. So some of these are worth it. Some of these are, again, maybe an overcorrection. But I do think Briar's ERRATA, which we will also talk about. I think we talked about it a little bit
in the beginning.
But I do want to talk about it more. But first, let's talk about Plunder Run, which is the last ban. So Plunder Run is banned specifically in CC. You can still play it in Blitz. And Plunder Run, I think most of the people that in our local meta and just all of the people that I really talk to about Flesh and Blood are of the same mind that Plunder Run, it was another like sort of templating thing.
Yeah.
The effect as it is too strong, because if somebody plays a Plunder Run and you full block the next attack, if they have a follow-up attack, it still applies to that. The buff doesn't, but the card draw does.
Right. And I mean, like, very rarely are you playing Plunder Run for the buff.
Yeah.
Like I mean, they even mentioned in the ban thing, like, you know, turns where you have 2 Plunder Runs are clunky, but specifically in CC, you know, you play your 1 Plunder Run and the rest of your turn, and you just arsenal the second one, and that's how you're going to start your next turn. And it's a lot easier to just be like, well, I'm not going to block. Like, you're attacking for 12. Okay, whatever. I'll take 12. Yeah, I'm at 30. You're like, whatever. So I'm going to play this Plunder Run to get the buff and card draw and. Yeah. So that's kind of, I think, why it ate it in Classic Constructed. You don't quite have the same amount of leeway in Blitz.
Yeah. Yeah, getting you can't normally afford to take a turn off of getting hit for, you know, like 15 or something. Yeah. If it's early in the game in CC, you can absolutely look at a 15 damage attack and go like, okay, no blocks, and just call it there. Cool. But yeah, in Blitz, you kind of have to be on the, you know, on the front foot for most of it in order to stand a chance. But yeah, I think one of the things that they actually mentioned in the announcement as well is that the combined effects of Plunder Run, like if you play it from the arsenal or even just the card draw from it, because all 3 of the colors have the same.
It's the same card draw.
Yeah, it's even if you're just playing for that, it's 6 copies of the same card technically, and yeah, just the resources that you can get from it and the pressure that it provides, making your opponent like overblock something because they don't want you to to draw a card. It just it results in these really, really like tempo swingy plays that make it really, really hard for your opponent to come back into the game. They just lose too much and you gain too much. And then that like sets off the rest of the game. And so, I think that it was maybe not super deserved. Like it is a really strong card, but in the face of the other changes that they made, I think that leaving Plunder Run in CC may not have been the worst thing in the world, but it does also limit their design for the future. Because it's just always going to be really strong in go wide decks.
I feel like they set a weird precedent here in that if they're able to errata Briar, they should have been able to errata Plunder Run to fix it.
I actually have a really interesting point about that, but I'm going to save it for when we actually talk about the errata itself. But in terms of Plunder Run, I do think that it was a really strong effect. It should have been from the get-go the next attack.
Yes.
If it hits draw a card. I think that it's like the only effect in the game that really
that carries
on.
over.
Yeah. I think all of the other ones are just your next attack.
There are some buffs. Dorinthia has some buffs that like weapon attacks this turn kind of thing, like sweeping ones, but they're not that common. And again, like Plunder Run's a generic. You can play it in any aggro deck. So just again, playing that out and making your opponent have to decide, is it worth it to let you draw a card? How likely is that to be like another attack? Like how likely is it to be more pressure or like set up for the next turn? So it's kind of, it made really hard decisions, as you said. Yeah. And honestly, going this trend, it wouldn't surprise me if it also gets axed in Blitz in the near future. Yeah. But I think they might be waiting until there's a fixed version. Like if they'll print a fixed Plunder Run and then ban Plunder Run.
There's actually an interesting precedent for this sort of like that specific situation in Yu-Gi-Oh. They have just as a quick tangent, I think that this would be like, this is a very common thing in Yu-Gi-Oh, where they have a card that's just objectively overpowered. Let's say Pot of Greed. It allows you to draw 2 new cards from your deck at no cost. What they've done, they banned the card because it's just too generic and too good, but they're trying to like through the years, they've tried to release new versions of it that have restrictions to try to like balance it. And so at this point they've released, I don't even know how many retrains, but it's gotten to the point where there's no way that they would ever unban the original Pot of Greed because they have all of these extra things around in the Yu-Gi-Oh zeitgeist of them trying to fix what they've basically admitted is a broken effect.
Mistake.
Yeah. So if they do print another Plunder Run as like a retrain, I think that would be fine. I don't think there's anything too wrong with that. Not. But it would definitely, for me, like seal its fate. Just it is on the ban list. If they print a new one.
If they print like if they print a card, I look at it and I say, this is just Plunder Run, but fixed. There's no way Plunder Run survives, because here's the thing. Now you've got, in like say Blitz, for example, 12 of them.
Yeah, like almost over a quarter of your deck is just Plunder Run. Yeah, which is, is it good?
Pretty funny.
Maybe.
Probably not.
No, but like, it gives you that flexibility. Like you could play, even in Blitz, you could then play 3 copies of Plunder Run.
Right.
Like, or you could play of the same color. Like you could play 3 red Plunder Runs, 2 of the fixed and 1.
Yeah, it's also one of those things where it's like, why design a card that's the same as a card that exists, but worse? Because people are just gonna be like, well, why would I play this card that's not as good as Plunder Run when I can just play Plunder Run?
When I could just play the better card.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so I think that's just about everything that I had to say about Plunder Run. But as I mentioned, I wanted to put a pin in the talk about the errata. So Briar's errata, I think, again, I was really a proponent of getting Briar errated in some way. I think the way that they did it, thankfully, is a lot more moderate than what I had in mind. Like it had something to do with, personal biases and just I didn't like playing against Lightning Briar. So maybe I was like, man, just like say that she doesn't exist, just total rescission of her card entirely. But I like the way that they did it. I like it from an aesthetic standpoint as well, because now her abilities read the first time an attack does something, and then the second time you play a non-attack. So it's first and then second.
Yeah.
I like that. It's just, it flows really nicely, and it's I don't know, it's just like aesthetic card design for me. But it definitely reins in her power level, and it's more indicative, especially from what they mentioned in the release, that it reflects what they intended her to be. So I respect that. I absolutely respect that. The other thing that I respect about it is that when they chose to do an errata, they did it on a card that is easily accessible. They recommend and like provide resources for printing out proxies of heroes and tokens and stuff
for events.
For events, yeah.
For sealed
so
events.
Technically, this errata, it's annoying, and it sort of feels bad if you sit across from a new player that just bought the Briar precon and you're like, actually, that's not what that card does. Like,
or if you bought a cold foil Briar.
If you bought a cold foil Briar, but whatever. But yeah, it feels bad in that way. But outside of the people who bought cold foil Briars and whatever, if you're just a new player that's learning to play, you don't like it's not a financially like devastating thing.
No, yeah, absolutely not. It's a functional reprint or functional, like it's a functional errata that doesn't really impact. Like if you went out and you bought a nationals level Briar list and you're relatively new to the game, and the only reason you did it is so you could make multiple embodiment of Earth tokens in the same turn, I don't know if you're playing this game for the right reasons. But aside from that, I mean, like, I don't think Briar's unplayable. I think now you just kind of like shift to how.
I think that she just becomes a more thoughtful hero. Like she's just a lot less shove all these cards in and play. Like you have to actually build the deck appropriately. And I still think that she has legitimate play styles. And I think that she's not dead. Like everybody thought Chain was dead after the Seeds of Agony ban. And he's still one of the strongest Blitz heroes, in my opinion. Like I think that he's absolutely up there, even without Seeds of Agony. So I think this, like, it's not quite the same because Chain got one thing banned and Briar got an errata and 3 cards banned.
2.5.
2.5. Yeah. She didn't really play Duskblade all that much, but so it is a little bit more. But that is also why I'm happy that they didn't errata Plunder Run as much as I would have wanted them to. Because if it was like, Plunder Run isn't an expensive card, but say it was like, you know, like Rampart of the Ram's Head or something, or like a legendary, and they decided to errata it changes the functionality of the card. It potentially devalues the card if they're doing like a power level thing. But for tokens, I think because they're widely available, you can just print out a stack of them and nobody cares. I think that that's a lot more elegant and a lot more conscientious in general of the secondary market and just the player base in general. Whether or not functional errata is something that should exist in physical card games is kind of a different discussion. But I if they had to do it, which I thought that they should have, I think that this is maybe the best way that they could have gone about it. So,
no, I agree with the errata. I think it's fair. It feels that more balanced. Like she feels like a more balanced hero.
Yes.
Not as much as I enjoy playing her and as much as I'd love to keep playing Lightning, it makes you sort of, as you said, like you be more thoughtful in your deck building and explore other aspects of what the like elemental Runeblade cards actually do. Yeah. So you can be like, okay, where do I go from here?
Like how many people have you seen playing a Briar list that run Rites of Replenishment?
Yeah.
Or Blossoming Spellblade? Those are cards.
Those are cards. They both attack for 6.
They're really cool cards. But there was no point in playing.
There's no real point because they like need you to be double fusion. Yeah. Like there's. So I think it was a good. I think overall, again, as we said, these were all good decisions individually. Yeah. It might have been a bit much for all of us to kind of swallow at once. Yeah. Especially with the new set on the horizon. Because we have no idea what's coming.
Yeah, like there could have been tools for it. Maybe this is them kind of admitting that there weren't going to be tools.
Or that like we're getting things that would have been more, maybe Briar's getting a new specialization and it's going to be so much worse with ball lightning.
It's just Enlightened Strike, but a Briar specialization, like something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, I think that just about wraps it up for what I had to say on it. That was a long episode.
It was a lot.
So if you guys,
it was a big announcement.
It was a big announcement. There was a lot to talk about. If you guys are still here, thank you so much for keeping with us. Let us know what you think of the changes in the comments. I'd love to see what other people are thinking about it. I know a lot of Briar mains are pretty sad right now, but
63%.
63% of all the people that play Flesh and Blood, apparently. But
I don't know what I'm going to do now.
But I think that this isn't going to be the end of the world. No. It's a lot, but I think that Briar is still going to be strong enough.
I think enough people are invested in Briar that we're going to start seeing hybrid lists or even Earth lists come out.
Yeah.
And I think I think we, depending on where you are and what your meta is, we might be in for a bit of a overcorrection of Oldhymns and Lexis.
Yes.
Until things level out. But I mean, we'll get there.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Tune in for our preview card for Everfest that will be coming out on January the 26th. We are very excited to show you what we guys have. We actually just got the card in today.
So we know one thing.
We know one thing other than the stuff that's already been revealed. We know one extra card.
We know one extra card.
But yeah, be sure to tune in and check that out. We're so excited to show you guys, and take care. We'll see you next time.
Remember, like, comment, subscribe, turn on your bell, and let us know what you think.
Those things.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Spike Feeders on YouTube. Before you close the window, make sure you click subscribe for more great Flesh and Blood content.